what does this week mean for you and where you guys are at?
It's always great to be at home. Feels like we haven't been here for a while, but it's a special weekend for our whole program, but certainly for our seniors. But with our guys, I think it's certainly a different level for our senior guys, specifically Brandon. Although he did go through this a year ago, I know it's going to be a lot different for him. I think emotionally, he grew up a Ute fan. I think it's very rare nowadays to see a guy stick it out for 5 years or 4 years, right, at one place. It's home for him. He could have had a lot of opportunity. Well, he did have a lot of opportunities last year. Obviously tested the waters, and there was never a doubt, if he was coming back to school, he was gonna come back to be a Ute. He cares about it deeply. He loves his place, and obviously he's a legendary player here. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of emotion that way. And then Cole, a little bit different story, right? 3 schools in 3 years. Graduated last year at Washington, came here as a grad transfer, but it's still, it's an end of a chapter in your life, and now you go out into the real world, so to speak, in a lot of respects. But those 2 guys have done a great job for us. Throughout the year, certainly being able to coach Brandon for 3 years, there's just seeing where he was 3 years ago and where he is today. It's just night and day. So super proud. And then we have some other guys that are going to graduate from school here, and that we're going to honor. And they do have a year of eligibility left with whatever they decide to do. If they decide to go pro, or hang it up, or stay, or transfer. And so, but I think when you get to this, the last homestand, the Pac-12, it's almost always 2 games. A lot of leagues, it's just the 1 game. There's just a lot of emotion that come into play. And the guys that aren't going through it can see things maybe in a little different light. And if you have a close locker room like we do, it means a little bit more to those guys too, because they want it super bad for their teammate, because that one day is going to be them. So. And then just for our team, it's good to be at home. It's been 3 weeks. Obviously, it's hard to believe the last homestand was Arizona and Arizona State. And so 2 very different games. But we played well at home, and hopefully we'll continue that trend.
What's the message to the team right now as you get ready to head down the stretch and try to get a higher seed in the Pac-12 tournament?
Yeah, there's still going to be a lot of, I don't know if this is the right word, but juxtapositioning within the league. Like, I just think a lot of things can change. Most teams have 4 games left, some have 3. And so, but that's how tight everything is, and things can flip pretty quickly for the good or the bad. And so there's a lot to play for. It's never too late. It's never too late. And so we had a tremendous practice yesterday and some real heart-to-hearts, and those things are great to have, and they can help, but you got to be able to go out and prove it on the floor. And there's some things that we can certainly, the beauty of this whole thing is we control it, right? So our attitude, our effort, our execution, right? Are we a perfect team? No, we have some limitations, but we have some real strengths too, and we got to do a better job of playing through those.
You've obviously had some of the highs where you've been able to be competitive.
Yeah.
Beat teams, but then you had games like this last weekend. How do you kind of balance that as a coach, especially coming down the stretch?
Yeah, it's hard, and that's you have 31 games in the regular season, and then whatever you earn in postseason play. I thought it was one of our worst 2 games of the year, but I also thought Colorado played really, really well. Like they played really, really well, and you got to give them a lot of credit to that. I felt like this is what good teams do. When you make mistakes, they make you pay. There were plenty of mistakes to go around that night, specifically defensively. We allowed them to score at 1.4 points of possession. I mean, that is really, really, really poor. Every time they had the ball, they scored almost 1.5 points. That's really hard to win. Puts a lot of pressure, on your offense. In the second half, I thought we did a good job just like keeping it at bay going into half. We had it 9, and we kind of seized some momentum there. And second half, though, we missed 9 point-blank shots at the rim. 9. I mean, that's 18 points. Let's say you make 8 out of 9. I mean, because these were not really contested either. I mean, semi-contested at best. So you gotta make teams pay that way, right? And we've shot ourselves in the foot at times with those kinds of things. And then we didn't get to the foul line, and we didn't make our free throw. We weren't very it was 7 for 13. I don't remember exactly what it was, but all in all, you got to cut your problems in half. That was a tough game. We had a great film session yesterday. Again, sometimes you get to game 27, it can be a little bit of a broken record. This team needs to have better consistency. This team, when things in practice, things that we really work on or harp on, I feel like we do a good job in a game. But then we tend to have some slippage in other areas, which isn't crazily abnormal, but we just have more of that. And I think there's a multitude of reasons for that, and I don't want to spend the whole day talking about that, but there is. So the bottom line is we got to learn from it. I think, it's so easy to say this, but it's just really lacking in our world. People have to be able to look at themselves and be real with themselves and just be honest. It's hard to do for most people. I probably do it too much. But you got to be able to look in the mirror and take accountability to what's going on, right? And figure it out and find a way to get better. So it's a decision. And so, we do have to learn from it. They are a very good team. There's a lot of things we know we're better at. It's easy to forget. Just 2 weeks ago, we played the number 9 team in the country to triple overtime. And we had the ball in the last possession to win that game. And we showed so much courage and heart. USC, the first 8 minutes of the game, we were a disaster with turnovers and shooting, right? And we missed a ton of open looks that night. That was one of those nights we just couldn't make a shot. We defended really, really hard and did some good things. And then we found a way to beat UCLA by eliminating losing. We made our free throws. We got to the foul line. We didn't turn it over, 9 turnovers. We defended really, really hard. So we got to be able to have consistency and know exactly what we're going to get. But I'm very confident we're going to learn from that game and be able to figure things out with the right mindset and attitude and playing with great connectivity because we've lacked with that consistently.
How's the feeling in the room kind of been? Obviously, you guys were in a position where everybody was talking NCAA tournament. That path has gone a lot more it's not impossible, but it's more complicated. You know, how's everybody feeling?
Yeah, I think, I've been doing this a long time. Some teams really handle that well when you're in the thick of it. And some people can't help but just stare at the every day, Lenardi and all this stuff. And then some can't handle it. We have a lot of guys that haven't been used to winning at the college level, at this high level. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. And you got to be able to overcome all of that from a physical standpoint, a mental standpoint. Everyone's telling you how good you are, right? Just a lot of different things. And we've, at the end of the day, the last 11 games, we haven't been nearly as good. Our defensive numbers have really dropped. Like our 3-point field goal defense has really dropped. Our 2-point field goal defense has dropped, right? Our assist numbers have really dropped as a team. And so, and then some. So the world's not caving in, but we got to be able to fine tune and understand how we were in that conversation for a lot of the year and get back to that style of basketball. Certainly the reality of it is Raleigh hasn't played for quite some time and we miss him. That's just the facts. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it's reality. And so we have to figure that out, right? We have to figure that out from a leadership standpoint, from a toughness standpoint, from a connectivity standpoint. And we got the guys in the locker room to do it, but we got to do it, and we got to make a conscious decision to do it. So how are they handling it? If you asked me that on Saturday, I'd say not very well, because we didn't play as well as we needed to compete to find a way to win at the end of that game. Now, Colorado's them and Arizona, 2 best home teams in the league. I think Washington State might be right there as well, with one loss, I think. So it's a really difficult place to win. And they're very, very talented, and they might be just hitting their stride here. We'll see. But I think it's kind of like, what? All that stuff, we've been trying to say this all year. It doesn't matter. I know they hear it all the time, so I know it matters. But at the same time, it really, you guys have heard me say this, we can't control any of that stuff. All we can control is our attitude, our effort, our toughness, our execution. And then we'll see where the chips fall. So a little bit cliche-ish, but I will say this. Monday's practice, it felt like it was one of the best we've had all year. So I hope that's a good sign. We had a great film session. Our guys approached it in the right manner without sensitivity, yet taking maybe some things personal, as we should, and being able to look in the mirror. And I thought we had a great team meeting. And so we'll see. That stuff's all fine and dandy on Monday. We got to be able to figure it out on today and Wednesday, and obviously when the lights go on Thursday.
What stood out about Stanford the last time you played, and what are some kind of takeaways from that game that you can implement as you rematch them?
Yeah, that was a interesting game. Watched it this morning. That was the first game without Raleigh. We found out that morning he wasn't going to play. Lawson got hurt 3 minutes, roughly 3.5 minutes in that game, and I thought we looked a little shell-shocked. Stanford now, the last few times, after us beating them 2 times in a row on the road, right, then they came in here last year as our first game without Gabe, and they took it to us, and then they beat us in the conference tournament, and they were able to win the other night, or not the other night, whatever it was, 6 weeks ago. They're very, very talented. They beat Arizona at home by making 16 threes. They beat USC, 2-3 weeks ago by making 19 threes. It is hard to make 16 threes in a game. It is insanely hard. I think it was a school record when they made their 19th three. So they have the ultimate neutralizer because most times on the floor, they have 5 guys that can make threes. And so you don't have to be perfect defensively, but you really got to be on point with your positioning. You got to know personnel. You got to make sure they feel you, because once they start seeing that ball go in the hole, like any team, good shooting's contagious, bad shooting's very contagious. So, Raynaud is playing at a high level. He's their starting center at 7 foot, 7'1". He's stretching the floor. Brandon Angel, those 2 guys have really hurt us the last couple times out, like really taking it to us. Spencer Jones is a really good player. I think he's a 5th-year guy. He's a bowling ball out there, but a 3-level scorer, great leader, super defender. The Carlisle kid and Stojakovic, those guys are high-level freshmen that are projected to be draft picks, at least one of them, and the other one will be eventually if it's not this year. So they have a lot of weapons out there. I also thought we shot ourselves I think we went 4 for 12 from the free throw line, right? And you lose in a tighter game. I mean, you just can't do that. 4 for 12, right? So we have to do a better job of eliminating losing to be able to beat these guys and do our best to return the form that we know that we can play at the level that we can play at.
At this point in the season, with Raleigh, is it considered shutting him down, or has that already been the conversation, or is there a chance that he can?
Oh, we've had a lot of conversations, believe me. So I know I've been a little bit of a broken record, but I can only tell you what I know. So I'm not trying to, he's going through right now his last thing that we're trying to get done to see if he can make it back. He's supposed to go into the doctor later this week. It's either Wednesday or Thursday. I think it's Wednesday, but it might be Thursday. And we'll see. So, but let's say he does get cleared. Now he's got to start doing his stuff, right? And so, he hasn't done anything really for since we played Stanford, because that was the day we found out he wasn't going to be able to go. So, So I know I keep saying, well, I think we'll know more next week. I think we'll know, and that's kind of what but it hasn't been the case. So obviously it's going slower than we had wanted. I know this. Raleigh's a competitor. Raleigh does everything humanly possible, from a recovery, from doctors, you name it, he's going to do it, because he's just itching to be out there, and I feel for him. Same with Will. Will came to that conclusion, shortly right after Christmas, but it's hard for those guys when you're out. The silver lining can be for those guys long term. Maybe you see things through a different filter. Maybe you see things in a different light. And I think there's a maturity level that guys can grow from when they go through that, because it's something taken away that you truly love. And that, both those guys would be helping us tremendously right now, but it's just sports, and that's life. And so you got to be able to figure that thing out. And our team and our coaches, we got to figure that out.
How can Lawson, he was hurt against Stanford. How can he help you in the matchup?
Yeah, so Lawson he was playing well. Now his scoring and all that stuff, I think he's just going to keep getting better in that. But first of all, it's depth. He's played very well since he's been back. He probably should be playing more. Not probably. He should be playing more, quite frankly. He's an excellent post defender. He's a massive human being, right? He's a legit 7'1", very long, incredible instincts. What he does on the defensive end of the floor, he's not always going to make the highlight reel plays, right? Where he's just going and swatting it into next week or jumping above the square to get a rebound. But Raleigh's our best communicator, but Lawson is our best communicator of the guys that are playing, right? And when your 5-man can be an elite communicator, like they're the air traffic controller, that's constant, because 5s are always, for the most part, you're below everybody else. So you have this ability to kind of survey and see the floor. And most of the time, those guys are going up and setting ball screens. So, when you can direct traffic and communicate, that gives everybody else a lot of confidence. Gives everybody confidence that that you got a footer back there protecting your back. He's got you. So it gives you confidence to know that you're not on an island. It also gives you confidence to know when you are semi on an island, you know what I mean? And you're not going to get blindsided, right? Whether it's a back screen, a ball screen, whatever it might be. He boxes out every time. He communicates all the time. He sprints the floor. He was our best player. Now, there's a little incentive against Colorado, but watch him on defense. Very rarely is that guy straight-legged, right? He's down in stance, and he's ready to go. It's been an issue for our team. Even when we're in the right position, a lot of times we're standing straight up and down. And like I tell our guys, I talk about football and boxing all the time. If you're in a boxing ring and you're standing out, you might not just lose the fight, you might lose something else. And in football, if you're not in stance and you're not sitting down, you just might lose your career. You got to be in stance and be athletic and ready to compete. Lawson does that, right? And then the other thing is he's an excellent passer. Although one of the passes against Colorado wasn't excellent, if you watch the game. But he does have very good feel for the game and understands spacing at a very high level on both ends of the floor. So he does a lot of really good things. And then the other part of it, just depth, right? Just simply the depth of being able to play Lawson, Kaba, BC, and Ben. That's a really good front line. But we got to go prove it because that Stanford front line is kind of kicked our butt the last couple times we played them.